So we've been talking REM. Our question of the day today, ugly, not ugly, and there are some pretty hard, I guess, serious opinions on both sides. We heard from a couple of callers, just going on about this, like, it might be the ugliest thing ever designed by a man. And then others saying, you know what, the bottom line is it's supposed to try to help you get into the city. It's supposed to get cars and trucks off the streets. That's the whole idea to begin with. Why are we making this kind of noise about something that is a good thing for the city?
David was still my favorite caller because he was like, good God, he's been in Canada for 5 years. And he's like, you people have it so good and you have no idea. You live in a beautiful place. You have nothing to complain about. And all you do is complain.
If it's too good, you complain. If it's too bad, you complain. There's no winning. So the one thing I think this does do, and our next guest will kind of be able to maybe put this into context, Glenn Castanheira is Director General of the Downtown Montreal Commercial Development Association. He is on the line. Glenn, if I understand this correctly, the one thing this does do, taking this away from the Caisse de dépôt and giving it to the city and the province and regional transit authorities, is really delay the whole deal. Is that not the case?
It's one of the consequences, but ultimately the way we like to look at it, it's applying world-renowned best practices. It's not that sexy and glamorous to talk about a governance of a project, but in reality, for a good project to happen, you need good governance. And when you get those people around the table and you do it properly, you end up with great projects. But
that suggests that the Caisse de dépôt was not doing a really good job and could not handle a project like this. Is that what you're saying at the same time?
It depends if you go into fine detail. I agree that the Caisse de dépôt is capable of developing a structure. Now, is the Caisse de dépôt capable, able, or is it in their mandate to plan public transit for a metropolis, for Canada's second largest city? The answer is no. It's not what they do. And they recognize it themselves. And mind you, this isn't just my opinion. It's the unanimous opinion of experts from all around that concluded that, they're great for delivering a project when you give them an order. Do A, B, C. But planning a public transportation, massive public transportation, not their expertise.
So when I read you this quote from the CDPQ, which says, CDPQ Infra designed and presented to the public a detailed, ambitious, and achievable architectural proposal in order to effectively meet the sustainable transportation challenge of hundreds of thousands of citizens in the eastern part of the metropolis. What do you say to that? Is that a hyperbole? Is that a lie? What is that?
Not a lie. It's they factually did analysis. They factually did propose an architectural infrastructure that, mind you, resulted in the initial architects slamming the door, not wanting to be associated to it. That is a fact. How many architect firms do you know that step back from Quebec's largest infrastructure project by fear of damaging their reputation? That's what happened. But there's some extremely competent people at CDPQ Infra, which is why we have a wonderful pension plan in Quebec, and which is why they manage property incredibly, and they have great engineers. It doesn't mean that it's their core business to do urban planning.
Was it a mistake involving them?
Again, I'm not an expert on the matter, but listening to the experts, it seems that it was. And not so much in mandating them, but in the mandate that was given, I believe, is what the issue was.
Okay.
Let me just clarify. Mandating them to develop an infrastructure is one thing. I think they're really good at it. Mandating them to develop, plan, and work with stakeholders, clearly not their cup of tea.
Glenn, we had a caller earlier wanting to know specifically about the work happening in the downtown core and some of those stores that had been moved along McGill College for REM construction. So she wanted to know what's happening with those stores, what's happening with the construction in general.
That's a really good question. So let's use an example of what the REM is doing now. We're very excited to have downtown be connected to the airport in 20 minutes through the McGill station. But that construction site, corner of McGill and St. Catherine, just for your listeners to understand, that is the most expensive real estate in all of Quebec. The most expensive square footage is right there in that intersection. It took us 3 years to convince CDPQ to try to embellish that construction site, to not make it walls covered with graffiti.
Hold on. I want to make sure we're clarifying for people where we're talking about. Are we talking about McGill College and St. Catherine, that corner?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Right in that intersection,
okay,
in front of Place Ville-Marie. And so to give you an idea, it took 3 years. And now it looks quite good in that very small intersection. The rest of the site is still problematic, but we finally got that done. Now, to your question, the impact, there is a short-term impact, but it's important that we look at the forest and not just at the tree. And I forget the name of the brand. There was a big retailer at the corner there that Banana Republic went bankrupt. They shut down all their North American stores. So they shut down. There's a few restaurants that are struggling around there. But in the long run, once that project is done, once this McGill station is done, it's going to be, once again, one of the most attractive square footage in all of Quebec, if not in all of Canada.
Okay, so all of that to say that it is ongoing, and this listener who was concerned about those stores coming back, chances are they'll come back or they'll be nearby. Things are ongoing is what I'm getting.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Banana Republic won't be coming back. Again, they went bankrupt. But if you look at Place Canada Trust, right next to it, there are, and I can't give it too many details on, but the property owners have told me that they have some very interesting, unique retailers coming in the pipeline. So we are quite optimistic.
Are you ultimately relieved by this decision? Do you feel like this was the right call and you feel better about the train not cutting through the above ground, the downtown core?
And yes, specifically the above ground corridor, yes, we are very much relieved about. That being said, we're also relieved. So overall, we're quite relieved, as seems to be unanimous in a lot of the expert opinion coming out. But ultimately, it's that we're also very optimistic that the project isn't dead. And that's quite important. We're not going to let this project die. We need structural public transit going eastwards. Connecting it to the Green Line is an interesting option. But avoiding a permanent mistake is really the second biggest positive outcome.
What does that mean, avoiding a permanent mistake?
Well, a suspended structure in the middle of a downtown, a world-class downtown like Montreal, and mind you, René Lévesque isn't very attractive now.
True.
Neither was Pine Street, Pine Avenue and Park before they redid it, and neither was Bonaventure before they redid it and it became Robert Bourassa. That being said, once you make those structures, you're stuck with them for about a century, and we're only going to have our future generations be stuck with burying it, same way Boston had to bury its highway. So we avoided that. And mark my words, we are going to speak in the future. We will talk about this project being canceled, the suspended line, the aerial line, the same way that today we talk about l'Autocad Est-Ouest. I don't know if you remember this project in the 60s, that there was supposed to be a highway going through Old Montreal. And they canceled it last minute. Now, imagine what would have happened if they went forward with an overhanging Metropolitan-style highway through Montreal, through Old Montreal.
Would have been kind of cool.
I want to ask you another question from a texter. Marco texted in saying, over the weekend, I saw 50 large rats on Union Street, just a couple of blocks from the REM station. He says the REM line is causing a huge rat problem in the city. So let me ask you, Glenn, is there an increased rat problem in the downtown core because of the REM?
That's a really good question. We haven't heard an increase in problems with rats due to the REM. There is a slight increase in cases because of aqueducts. They normally come out when you work in aqueducts. And that's where most of the city's infrastructure work is happening. But there is also another element that we need to be very transparent with, is that we're not New York yet, but New York has a massive rat problem. Mm-hmm. If we're not careful, we might end up with something similar to New York. And it happens in big cities, especially with large aqueducts. So, again, nothing due directly to the REM that I know of, but it's something that we need to be careful
So when you're talking about aqueducts, and I'm thinking about all that pipe work being done along St. Jacques or whatever around Griffintown, that can't go on forever. We know the pipes, a lot of the planning here just never got done. There are pipes that are 100 years old, and one administration after another just kept putting it off. This work is going to eventually get done completely, isn't it?
So it depends where. I'll let the city do its representation, but having sat on many committees, I do remember distinctly one meeting when I was told, and I quote, Mr. Castanheira, if we keep up at this rate, in 30 years, we would have caught up roughly 60% of what we need to do. Okay. So, and I don't know if that's still the case, but fact is, you said it earlier, we've been postponing because it's really not popular, right, to do infrastructure. And we're paying for it now. The good news, and I'll preach for my choir here, is that when it comes to downtown, most of the strategic infrastructure is going to be done. St. Catherine, McCaff, Peel, all those are going to be done, and will be good for the next century.
When you say done in what? In 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 100 years?
So St. Catherine should be done by the end of 2030, but that's by sections, right? They do a couple blocks at a time.
2030. Okay.
2030 is the last, was it 2029? All the way up to Atwater should be done by 2029, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
But this is, again, chunk by chunk, because let's remember, and I lived through the Saint Laurent construction site, right, on the Saint Laurent Boulevard.
Remember that.
And our business survived because we own the building.
Yeah, well, you're lucky because we all know so many businesses did not.
Exactly.
That entire area of the city
Decimated.
changed because of that.
Exactly. And worse yet is that when they finished, they looked almost exactly the same as before. In the case of Saint Laurent, everything was done at the same time, which literally paralyzed the whole street. We've learned from that. The city has learned from that. It's really not perfect yet. But when I compare what I've lived through, things got a lot better. They do it per block. Now they give contracts to one contractor that can centralize everything. And like that, if there's a slowdown or a problem in an area, they can compensate in the other. So it's getting better. And ultimately, when it's done, I don't know if you guys have been to the new section of St. Catherine, go in front of the Eaton Center, the Bay. The sidewalks are wonderful, and they're packed, completely packed.
It's true. Yeah.
No, it's very nice. And let's not get going about what's happening in Phillips Square, Glenn. That's a conversation for another day, which would involve alcohol. Glenn Castanheira, Director General of the Downtown Montreal Commercial Development Association. Glenn, thanks. Appreciate the time today.
Thanks for having me.